Hello there to all our viewers and welcome to another exclusive News First interview. Joining me today is counseling psychologist Nivendra Uduman. Hello sir and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Mr. Uduman, in Sri Lanka we do not place too much of an emphasis on mental health, but with the outbreak of the COVID-19 here in Sri Lanka and across the world, people are suffering not only physically but mentally as well, and this can be especially seen in Sri Lanka with the mental agony that is suffered by the people who especially lose their jobs, and also we have received reports of an increasing trend of incidents of domestic violence. So Nivendra, tell me briefly, what really is the reason for all of this, and what can the people really do to cope up with the stress surrounding the current situation in the country and across the world?
Okay. So I think firstly, this is not something we were prepared for as a country. It hit quite suddenly and people hadn't had any sort of education on how to deal with something like this, because we have never faced something of such a enormity in the country. So feeling anxious, feeling frustrated, feeling fear at a time like this is normal, and whatever people are feeling, it's important that they understand that it's valid. So there's nothing you're not supposed to feel at a time like this. So yes, people's livelihoods are affected. People sometimes do not have food and essential needs to survive. Other people are suddenly cooped up at home and they might not have things to occupy themselves with. Children might be at home for long periods of time and they might not have enough stimulation. So all of these things would cause mental health related challenges for people. So this is not to say that everyone would develop mental illness or mental health problems, but people would undergo stress, people would undergo a lot of anxiety, which is normal at a time like this. So I think with the challenges we are facing with the quarantine and also the isolation and the physical distancing that we've been advised to do by the government authorities, it's causing people problems in terms of adapting to that, because it's something very new.
Right. So Nivendra, tell us principally, what can the general public really do to cope up with this situation? We've clearly identified the problem and we're living through it right now, but what can they really do to address this?
All right, so I think to very simply put it, it's important first to focus on what we have in our control, focus on what we can control and not on things that we can't. So for example, looking after ourselves and our families, occupying ourselves so that we are mentally stimulated, following government instructions and following the law of the land are things we can control at a time like this. But what we can't control is the future. What we can't control is how many people would get infected. What we can't control is the decisions that the government makes. So if we really are able to distinguish between these two things about what we can control and can't, it will also be very much easier for us towards our mental health. Apart from that, I think it's just important to acknowledge what we are feeling or thinking at a time like this. So not to type of suppress what we are feeling or to push away those difficult emotions that we might have, but to say, okay, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling scared, and really encouraging family members and children especially to also express emotions in whatever way that works for them. And just also connecting with our bodies, so maintaining a regular sleep routine, maintaining regular exercise which you can do at home safely. So some people are trying to start to work out following a lot of online videos and things like that that are available, but some of that might not be suitable for them because of their physical health, maybe because of their structure. So it's really important to follow proper instructions if you're exercising, but it can be something as simple as doing some light stretches during the day, and just practicing things like deep breathing. Maybe if people are into things like meditation, then doing that more often at a time like this, all of that can really help connect with the body, which means that you're able to sort of ground yourself, which means mentally also you can center yourself into the present rather than always worrying about what can come in the future, because that's what a lot of people are doing at the moment. And really engaging in things. So engaging in, it could be chores at home, it could be play with children if you have any, it could be engaging in a hobby that you might not have really focused on a lot before the self-isolation. It could be engaging in relaxing activities. It could be connecting with people, because we have access to social media, we have access to the phone. So connecting with people you may have not spoken to in a while. So all of these things are simple, practical things that people can do to maintain good mental health at a time like this.
Also, Nivendra, another main problem that people in this country are facing, of course, is that their economies are falling apart.
Yeah, very
people
much.
who work on a daily basis really have nowhere to turn. And if I'm an average citizen of the country and I engage in daily labor, manual labor, something like repairing something, and I earn on a daily basis, and if I am confined to my home to 2 weeks, to 21 days, how do you really realize, how do you cope up with this stress of worrying about how I'm going to eat tomorrow, how I'm going to feed my children, how I'm going to feed my wife? I mean, I know principally speaking about it is much more easier than doing it, but knowing is winning half the battle. So tell us, what can we really do?
Okay, I think that's a really, really important question to ponder on, because we have seen over these couple of weeks that there are certain populations in our community who have been left behind in terms of information going to them, in terms of essential items going to them, and in terms of them being able to ask for help from the government, because there are certain populations, for example, like the sex worker community. It could be people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender. It could be people who maybe drug users who don't have access to substances at this time, who might be really struggling because of the lack of livelihood, but also because of physical and psychological effects that the lack of their usual habit,
brings them.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that they are not able to ask for help, because it's stigmatized and it's a huge taboo in our country to ask for help in those particular livelihood options that they engage in, it's a problem. And I think we also have to, as a community, be conscious of our privilege, right? Because some of us, we are very privileged to be able to be home, live comfortable lives even at a time like this.
Eat 3 meals a day.
Have enough food and water and all the other essential needs, whereas other people are literally starving. When I say literally starving, they are starving because maybe they might have to think about their family before they find things for themselves to eat, right? So I think it's really important that we have a system in the country where people's basic needs are met, right? So it's really unfair to sit here and preach to people about how they should cope, because in reality, it is very valid that they might be feeling really, really fearful and scared and frustrated at a time like this, because they might not have access to those basic needs. So especially when it comes to economics and the lack of livelihood at a time like this, I think one thing we can really tell people is to kind of have a plan as to how to gradually get back into it once this period lifts, right? Because currently, you might be in a state where I don't have any control over this. My livelihood is done. I can't earn. Now, how do I manage? And that's a valid feeling to have, but maybe to list down a plan as to what one can do once the curfew lifts and once this situation comes under control, to slowly get back into doing what they were doing. But for some people, we also have to acknowledge that it will take a very long time for them to get back into their trade. For example, take a physiotherapist or take a masseuse at a spa. They might not have worked for a long, long time. So how do we talk about livelihood and mental health when we know that people literally can't earn their daily keep?
Nivendra, also another issue is that we have continued to receive reports that the number of cases of domestic violence, especially that comes to police stations and other institutions that have been set up for that kind of matter, have increased quite drastically. Is this natural? Is this normal? Because people are more at home, that cases of domestic violence increase. And what can these people really do? Where can they go? I mean, it's curfew, you can't leave your house. There are no helplines set up for this kind of an issue. I mean, if you don't get your essential food items, you can call the police, you can call the special task force. But if you are facing issues of domestic violence and you're being subject to not only just physical torture, but mental torture as well, what do you do?
Okay. I think it's a very important thing to address, because it might not be publicized so much, but we know that there's a great risk of incidents of domestic violence increasing at a time like this because of the close confined spaces that people are living in. And also, if there was a history of domestic violence going on before this whole situation came about, I think the risk is greater that it could turn more aggressive, it could turn more violent because of the confined space and the lack of means to kind of get out of that situation for a person. So if you are experiencing domestic violence, be it physical, be it sexual, be it emotional or financial at this time, it's really important that you know that there is help available for you. So a hotline that is available through the Women in Need, which is an organization specifically that works with domestic violence, is 0114 71 85 85. Repeat again, 0114 71 85 85, which is 24 hours active. So you can reach out to them and they will support you through the process of getting help. And the Women and Children's Desk of the Sri Lanka Police, which is 0112 444 444, is also a number that you can call if you need help, if you're going through domestic violence. But again, domestic violence is not always visible. Some people would go through emotional abuse for years and years and no one would know because you don't see the scars, you don't see the bruises, you don't see the fractures, right? So again, remember that even if it's emotional violence, it's really important that you talk to someone about what you're going through and that you seek help, right? I know that it's easier said than done because at a time like this you might feel restricted, but if you have access to your phone or if you have access to social media, make sure that you connect with a friend or a family member that you can trust and have a pre-agreed plan as to how you would communicate to that person in the event that you're going through violence at home. And I think this applies to children because we're not focusing on child abuse at this time, but there's a risk that child abuse can also increase, mainly corporal punishment, physical abuse, even sexual abuse at home, and also emotional abuse. So for a child, 1929 of the National Child Protection Authority is a helpline which children can call or an adult can call if you know that a child is going through abuse. And also the Women and Children's Desk, like I mentioned earlier, 0112 444 444 is a number that people can call if you know a child is also going through difficulties at home. But if you're stuck with your partner at home and you don't have a means of accessing a phone to reach out for help or a friend or a neighbor, it's really important to protect yourself. So some simple tips. One tip is do not get into arguments or kind of confrontations with your partner in a place where you can be cornered. So your kitchen, your bathroom and your bedroom must be avoided as much as possible, and maybe have those conversations in a space where you can move around easily and you can get out if there is danger. But getting caught in a place like a kitchen or a bathroom can put you at risk, right? If you're being physically hit or physically abused by your partner, it's really important that you know how to protect your vital organs at a time like that. So for example, covering your head and getting your body into a fetal position, right? So a lot of those things are things people can do if there's no other option for them to get help or to escape at a time like that.
That's the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, yes.
So Nivendra, really the takeaway from everything that you've been saying right now is that despite mental health or topics surrounding mental health being a taboo in Sri Lanka, right now there are avenues for people who are suffering with mental health issues, especially due to the coronavirus outbreak and the imposition of curfew across the country. They do have help. And if you could give us some of the means that they can access this help through, it'd be very helpful for the general public.
So there are a couple of helplines available in Sri Lanka, which I'll give the numbers for. So 1926 is the National Mental Health Line, available 24 hours. There's also 1333, that is 1333, which is a crisis support service, available 24 hours in all 3 languages. Sumitra, which is a well-known organization, has a helpline 0112 696666, which is available from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day in all 3 languages. And also Shanti Margam, which is another organization, has a helpline 0717 639898, which is from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Apart from that, we have also set up a online counseling service called COPE Sri Lanka, that's COPE, COPE Sri Lanka, which you can access on Facebook. There's a Facebook page, and through that page you can book appointments to consult a psychologist on video conferencing. So those are some of the services that are available. And also for people on medication or people who need to get their medication renewed, prescriptions renewed for psychiatry related issues, people can access their local hospital, because some of the clinics are still running, or else if they are on privately seeing a consultant, they can maybe access that person over the phone. There's also an app called ODoc. If they are registered through that, they can access a consultant psychiatrist on video call. So these services are available at the moment.
And they are continuing to remain operational,
Yeah.
despite the current curfew that has been imposed across the country. Well, of course, the topic of mental health has been a taboo in the country, but given the current avenues of help that are available, it can no longer be considered as a taboo. It is a recognized issue
Very
that
much,
people
yeah.
face with, and it's an underlying issue of many bigger problems that the society faces as a whole, such as domestic violence.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Nivendra,
Thank
for joining us on our show and shedding light on these matters. And the final message, according to what Nivendra was speaking about, to anyone in the country who is suffering with mental health related issues, is that you are not alone. This is not something that is peculiar to you. There are many others who are suffering with this as well, and this can happen to anyone. The main point being that help is available.
Yes.
And you should not bottle up your feelings and keep it to yourself, but rather seek help through the numbers that Nivendra has given to you, and you will be just fine, and you will make it through these tough times together with the rest of the nation. Thank you very much once again, Nivendra, for joining us on our show. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.